So welcome everybody. Welcome to this first webinar of the series on sustainability and especially on sustainable aviation fuels. My name is Santiago Ayaleiva. I'm the project manager for the CCCA Corsia project. So this is the European Union project to work hand in hand with the ASEAN states in sustainability, and more specifically to reduce CO2 emissions from international aviation. So as you could see from the few slides of introduction, we will go with the different topics that the project address. And let me just start playing a video to start with a bit of interaction. So as you see the different topics of the webinars, and this is a video you can find in our website, we will start addressing from this Alliance on Renewable Energies. We will talk about also the SAF experience of operators. We will talk about certification schemes for sustainability and some other topics that might not be directly related to SAF, but it will be related obviously to sustainability in aviation. That's a bit of introduction on the project itself. I think it was important first to set the scene with where we stand and what the project role is to support the ASEAN member states in this journey of sustainability. Indeed, as you could see on the first slides, the project is mainly focusing on CO2 reductions, and this is supporting the ASEAN member states in reducing CO2 emissions from international aviation. And here we are using obviously the standard ICAO tools. This is helping and supporting the ASEAN member states in the implementation of Corsia, and obviously not only to the state authorities, but also to the all aviation actors and all the verification actors. So this also is supporting the ASEAN member states in the revision of their state action plan. And this is obviously depending on the appetite of the different ASEAN member states to go in the implementation of new measures and to improve the recording of emissions and the monitoring of those emissions and the reduction of through the actions. And then also on the more IT side, but ensuring that these emissions are properly recorded and there is a reliable system to record and to support both Corsia implementation, but also the monitoring of the state action plans. And last is initiating this dialogue on climate change policies. And this is obviously more related to or connected to the ongoing discussions at ICAO level and facilitating the ASEAN member states in getting the information and also getting technically ready to be up to speed for the discussions. This webinar is the first of the series, and we decided to place this webinar as the first one because of the collaborative spirit that it shows. I will now go in more details. My colleague, Michal from the European Commission, our speaker today, will go more in details, will provide all the introduction. But as you know, the sustainable aviation fuels has been identified as the key measure for aviation, for international aviation, to meet the carbon net zero target for 2050. And this is something that is not only coming from the regulators, it's a common and shared view by the industry and also by the scientists to identify these sustainable aviation fuels as the key measure. Obviously, it's not the only measure, and this is something that needs to be highlighted, as the CAEP study on long-term aspirational goals identified, not only SAF is necessary, and indeed is not enough with the in-sector measures. There will still be in need of other off-sector, like for example, Corsia, to achieve the 2050 goal. And therefore, it's very important, obviously, to enable the work towards the scaling up of sustainable aviation fuels, but also not to forget about the other measures that we have also to implement to meet the targets. But we picked this subject, and especially this alliance, because of the collaborative spirit around it. And I think it's the realization that the launching and the scaling up of sustainable aviation fuels, it cannot be done by individual actors, has to be done globally and has to be done in a coordinated and integrated manner. And here is these initiatives are putting all these actors together and making sure that there is a good sync between the policy development, technological developments, and so on. As I mentioned, Michal will contribute and will provide much more detail. Here you have the small bio of Michal. As you see, quite experienced in the EU sector, quite responsible of the policies on hydrogen and renewable and low carbon fuels. So quite an expert in the field already, and with previous experience in circular economy and also in the chemical field. And this is obviously all the work done with the different stakeholders in the industry, but also with the regulators worldwide. What is the value for this alliance and around the sustainable aviation fuels, or in a wider terms, and he will explain later, for renewable energies and low carbon fuels. So I will not entertain much. I think it's time for Michal to take the floor. I see I'm missing a few slides where I'm supposed to explain a bit the dynamics, and I see now, because I think it will be quite important for especially the question and answer. Let me just go back to my... First of all, it's quite tricky then. So as you could see, and I will just do it from here, not to mess it up more. So my colleagues Ralph Gosman, also here on the screen, and Rebecca Feinstein will help me with the moderation. You will find the Slido section open for Q&A, for question and answers. This obviously is for you to drop all the questions you may have along the presentation. We will dedicate time after Michal's presentation to reply to those questions. Also, we have enabled the chat, and this is free for you to express yourself. Obviously, please be kind and respectful, but you can, this is something for you to interact with the different participants. And here we will not pick any item for discussion. If you have a question that you want to address to the speaker, please go to the Q&A. And here you have the details on how to reach the Slido. It's already integrated in WebEx. So if you look at the WebEx application, you will see the Slido popping and being able to introduce your Q&As, your questions. If not, you can go also directly to the website, to slido.com, and introducing this passcode and the item number, so the meeting number, starting with a hash, or directly we'll go with the QR code that you have on the screen, beam it, and then jump into the Q&A. So we will use it before, we will display it again before giving introduction to the Q&A session. But please, if you have the opportunity now, while getting ready, when Michal is getting ready, have a look and make sure that you are ready to interact with the speaker. As I mentioned, free chat. You can drop your comments, questions. Also, if you have difficulties to hear, or if there are some technical difficulties, as I was having myself with a presentation, you can please put it on the chat, and then we will react quickly to solve it. So Michal, I think it's time for you to take over and to give us the information about the alliance you are promoting under the European Commission. Thank you very much.
Good morning. Thank you for this kind introduction. I will now show a couple of slides from my side. Yeah, I think it should work now already.
We can see it perfectly, so ready to go.
So, good morning. My name is Michal Kubicki. Thank you, Santiago, for the introduction. I work indeed in DG Move. For the past year, I was involved in the preparations for the launch of the Renewable and Low Carbon Value Chain Industrial Alliance. We have successfully completed a number of key milestones, so it's time that we can already present what has happened for the past more than 12 months. And I would want to update you as well on what's happened next. But before that, a couple of sort of present a couple of words about what is an industrial alliance, where we come from, what's the scope, what are the rules, and how can you join? Which I obviously hope that everybody in this group will be passionately interested in doing. So without more delay, let's jump to the origins. So where we actually came up with the idea of creating the alliance. We can trace the idea back to the Great Deal, when we confirmed that the transport sector is way behind in its decarbonization pathway. We set up there a quite ambitious target for, I can move like that. This that we have set a target for reducing the emissions from the transport by 90% by 2050. From this sort of general ambition and target was subsequently sort of analyzed and put into the more concrete actions and deliverables in sustainable and smart mobility strategy that was adopted in 2020, where we have noted that there are two transport modes that are in need of additional attention, and that was air and waterborne transports. We also noted that they're a bit different than the road or rail transport modes, in the sense that for the moment there's still not enough sufficient maturity with regard to the zero emission technologies. We also noted that there is long development and longer life cycles of aircraft and vessels, and therefore the replacement rates for the new generation of transport vehicles will take longer. We noted that there is a need for much more significant investment in refueling equipment and infrastructure. And as well, we noted that there is a quite different approach, important difference with regards to the internationalization of these transport modes, meaning that these vessels and aircraft can much more freely decide on geography where they would want to equip themselves with the fuel. So with that in mind, we have set up the pathways for decarbonization of those two transport modes, looking at both the demand side and supply side measures. With regard to demand side measures, we prepared the Fit for 55 communication, which included two regulatory instruments. But at the same time, we said that, well, to complement that, we also need an action on the industrial side. And therefore, we have had a commitment to set up a new industrial alliance to boost the supply and deployment of the most promising fuels for all transport modes, with the aviation and waterborne in focus. So, looking at the demand side measures that I mentioned, they're obviously very much familiar with the aviation proposal. We know that we had reached the agreement in the council, but looking back into where we came from, we projected that this instrument should significantly create a significant demand for sustainable aviation fuels, both with regards to the bio-based and synthetic fuels from now till 2050. What the sister proposal, which was focused on the maritime, which is also progressing in a similar fashion in the aviation proposal, also had this ambition, but a bit different approach. In the maritime, we understand there's more flexibility with regards to the specific fuels technologies that can be used. Therefore, the approach taken was, rather than having the blending mandates as in the aviation proposal, in the maritime area, we set up the GHG intensity of energy used on onboard ships, which will have a progressively more ambitious target at the sort of individual level, individual vessel level. So on those two proposals, what they would mean for the overall market, we have done sort of the modeling of the fuels markets, including with those two, after those two proposals would have been instated. And we saw that with that in mind, the effect of the overall demand would be quite dramatic with regards to the shift, not on, to the overall volumes of fuels that will be needed, and as well the shift of the dominant consumption modes from the road to aviation and waterborne. We still see that the road transport will continue to grow and will become a dominant consumer of those fuels by 2030. But after that, we expect a dramatic change in the overall market structure, with much more development and growth happening in the aviation and waterborne sectors than in the road. What this showed us that, well, we had to work with the industry on two fronts. First of all, we would want to continue to support the road transport with the fuels that they would need for the coming years. Also, we need to have an increase in overall production capacity for all the fuels, for all transport modes. And that's why we have seen this wording in the Fit for 55 Chateau communication. But the focus on the transport on waterborne and aviation transport is eminent from these graphs. Not only will have to create a new net capacity, but also we will need to work with the existing suppliers of the fuels in the road transport to think about the diversification strategies, so that their future growth is not limited to one transport mode, but they can ensure that the business models are stable and they can look with the bright side into the future, knowing that the products will find customers in other transport modes. So therefore, looking at that, we turned to the idea of creating industry alliance. So what is an industry alliance? It's a voluntary platform of work with the industry when we see an urgent rationale for changing the business models. When we also see that there is a risk of being squeezed out of markets with regards to the position that today the EU industry is taking. And also when we see a chance to capture promising future markets. It's also important that these industrial alliances are set up in the area where there's a clear alignment with the EU policy objectives, and where we would want to attract private investors and to discuss new business models. So essentially, these industry alliances is a platform when the Commission provides a safe space for the discussion between the different players in the markets to create the new partnerships that involve both sort of industrial value chain cooperation, but also that brings investors, so we secure successful financing of the new ventures. There are a number of prior industrial alliances that the Commission has set up. Some of them may be more familiar to you, like the Battery Alliance or Clean Hydrogen Alliance. These industrial alliances sort of paved the way for our alliance, as it is still a new instrument in the Commission, and there's still a new sort of learning and experimentation happening. So all of those existing industrial alliances are a bit different. They have taken different decisions with regard to some parts of their objectives. And they have also took a different approach to how they work with their key partners, whether there's involvement of the private stakeholders, whether there is some direct financing provided from the Commission. Our approach, we sort of tried to take the best elements from all of those existing alliances, and we came out with the formula that we believe will suit the best of what we need. In a sense, we created an industrial alliance that has two general objectives: to tackle the availability and affordability of renewable low carbon fuels for drop-in fuels for aviation and waterborne, and to boost the production, storage and distribution capacity without compromising access for further transport modes. We have, with that two objectives, we have identified a number of specific objectives. I will talk about those in a moment in more detail. We also created a governance structures that involves the industry at the core. We have a General Assembly with two chambers for aviation and waterborne. We will set up a number of roundtables, which would be a sort of a technical work groups to progress on specific areas of the work of the Alliance. We will have a secretariat to support this work, and we also set up a steering group that involves our key partners to guide the overall directions for the Alliance. So I will talk about all of those steps now in a bit more details, starting with the the first objective of the Alliance. So these objectives are structured in a sort of sequence area, starting from where we want to go into the where we would want to where we want to get with regards to the investment pipeline. So maybe I can mention that this the approach is a bit of sort of reverse tracking, as the most important element is that we will create a pipeline of viable investment projects. This is for, and to get there, we need to have a number of steps that will help us in prepare for the launch of this pipeline, collection of the projects into the pipeline. So first, what we need to do is to prioritize fuels and make an initial assessment of the value chain. This will help us to identify the strong and weak points in the value chain of the fuels that we will see as the most promising. Therefore, first we need to have a look into what is the availability with regard to the feedstock, what is the state of play with regard to the technology maturity, and knowing that, we can then sort of see into what are the strong and weak points in the value chain in the EU, and then as well with our global partners. And knowing that, we then can turn to the objective 2, which is assessment of the enabling conditions and identification of gaps that may have in regard to the standardization, safety assessment, and also other like skills. So this second, with that work on one side done, we will then turn to the assessment of the funding environment. Here we want to create something like a Hydrogen Alliance did with the funding campus by assessing existing relevant public and private financing opportunities. So this will allow us to catalog what's out there, and in doing so, we also be able to see whether there are particular gaps that we can that we need to fill in. Now, important to note here is that previous industry alliances had a lot of sort of relevance for the development of the state funding instruments, such as the IPCI. We have learned from our colleagues in the COMP that this involvement might, to some degree, compromise the independence of the Commission assessment of those proposals that then come into the Commission from the member states. Still, we believe that the work of these alliances will benefit from having a lot of independence from our work. We'll pass this this step to the industry, and therefore we hope we will be able to mitigate this sort of accusation of the of conflict of interest, as we essentially we want to create this alliance for the industry, and with a strong involvement of the industry players, exactly to ensure that we can take the results of this work and integrate with the other work streams in the Commission. So, knowing those three elements, which are the priority fuels, what are the strong and weak points of the alliance, of the value chains, what are the enabling conditions needed, and what are the funding opportunities, we can then turn to getting ready with the calls for the project proposals. Here we will still have this pipeline of projects will have as an objective to first of all allow the project sponsors to evaluate what are the sort of attractiveness of the project with the criteria based on the results of those three objectives. It will then help them in attracting potential investors because of awareness of how their project fits into the future vision of the fuel value chain in those two transport modes. And we'll also be able to, with this, to create new business partnerships in a vertical fashion of knowing of how this fuel pass on in the along the value chain. Those four objectives will be supplemented by the objective 5, where we would want to seek synergies with the other transport modes and also other initiatives. This in particular will be relevant, for instance, for our work with the Clean Hydrogen Alliance, because when we would want to leverage of their work with regards to the hydrogen-related technologies. It will also have a lot to do with the working close collaboration with the colleagues from the other transport modes, so that we can integrate the concerns with regards to the feedstock availability, for instance, or questions of optimizing the outcomes of the refining processes, so that all different byproducts will find their way to the markets. This actually drives me to the next slide, when I would want to show you how this alliances is integrated with the other initiatives, and how it is actually working on with regard to the different fuels technologies that are in our interest. As I was saying earlier, this alliance will focus on the two transport modes that are a bit different, where we need to rely more on the existing fleets and existing infrastructures. Therefore, this alliance will focus on the drop-in fuels that are compatible with the engines that are already in use, and most of the sort of fuel delivery technologies that are already in use. This in particular relates to the aviation sector, where we are when we are looking into essentially the synthetic liquid fuels and bio-based liquid fuels that can be blended or used in high grades, even 100% blends for those existing engines and within the existing refueling infrastructure. Here we will see that we will work alongside the other fuel technologies that are outside our scope. For instance, with regard to the direct use of hydrogen, this technology will be is already in the scope of the Hydrogen Alliance, and also the Zero Emission Aircraft Alliance. These technologies that look more into the future, which are not able to be adopted or applied immediately, will be in the interest of those the other industry alliances that are showed here. So the Zero Emission Aircraft Alliance and the Hydrogen Alliance. A similar distinction is made with regards to the waterborne transport, where we again focus on those technologies that are ready for immediate deployment and that are compatible with existing fleets and infrastructure, or that they require minimal adaptations. Again, the distinction is here that those technologies that are focused on deployment in the future, we have different instruments set up that look more into the research and development way of work rather than already deployment. So those technologies that are more looking into the use of battery electric, wind and solar, and again direct use of hydrogen will be outside our interest and will be in the focus of the other existing instruments. Now, turning to the governance and how we would want to make this alliance work. Maybe I will. Before that, I will maybe jump back to the who principle of the openness. Who can join the alliance? Our alliance is set up in a sort of open fashion, meaning that anybody can, that the membership is not conditioned to the location or the capital structure of businesses, meaning that we are open for members going from all our global trading partners from the EU and also abroad. It is to ensure that the value chains that we create in Europe is well integrated with the global value chains. We are also open to the businesses, but also non-business stakeholders, industry associations, member states, which will be very important additions to our alliance. And we also open to the research and development in institutions, so that parts of our work that require further development will be able to have an adequate, will be easier to find adequate partners. So with this different kind of stakeholders, let me turn to the slide when I want to show you how we will want to work together. So first of all, we will want to work in the fashion of along two pillars of the alliance, aviation and waterborne pillar. We will call them chambers. All the members of the alliance will form a general assembly. For those two pillars, we already wanted to start work early on with having a structure that is already functional at the early stage of the formation of the alliance. Therefore, we decided to appoint the chairs from among the business leaders that showed and demonstrated their interest in the case. We have therefore selected Safran and Fincantieri to be the chairs of those two chambers for aviation and waterborne, respectively. The General Assembly will be supported by the Secretariat. We had selected Fuels Europe and Hydrogen Europe to form the partnership to work together as a Secretariat. This selection was based on an open call for interest that we launched in November last year. We received 14 different proposals, and from those we decided to continue negotiations on the Secretariat with the two, as I mentioned. There were a number of considerations. So not only that we had to look into the best proposals at the individual level, but also we wanted to create a partnership that would be sort of reinforcing each other, looking at the different aspects of the work, and therefore also it was important that the constellation of the Secretariat would also be the best in the way of what kind of interests are represented. Secretariat will also be part of the steering group. That is, I must say, the backbone of the governance structure of the alliance. Secretariat, the steering group is composed of the Secretariat partners, so Fuels Europe, Hydrogen Europe, and the two chairs of the industry of the pillars, Safran and Fincantieri. In this group of 4 plus DG Move, we work on a daily basis to prepare the next steps of the alliance, namely the work of the thematic roundtables and to prepare the work of the General Assembly. What is the role of the steering group? Is to provide the overall direction of the alliance, is to prepare the draft work plan of the alliance that we are now working on, also to give the guidance on communication, and it will also give the advice to the Commission on the selection of the roundtables. At the moment, we think about creating four roundtables that will focus on the aviation-specific areas of domain, of the waterborne specific problems that need to be tackled, especially in the sort of the first two objectives that we mentioned earlier. We also have a thematic objective that would work on the horizontal aspects, and in particular on the questions of higher levels in the value chain. So the questions of feedstock supply and the sort of the business around the refining of those fuels. And the fourth group that we want to create would be dedicated to the financing aspects. The details of these, how this will be set up, will be presented to the members of the alliance in the coming days. Actually, we want to launch the consultation on the work plan of the alliance, which will include the proposal for those 4 roundtables and how they will work within the next in the coming days. I will talk about the steps in a moment. Actually, that's my next slide. So let me show my next slide. Yep. So that's where we are now in the preparation for the alliance. We completed the stages, the early preparation stages. So the internal scrutiny process inside the Commission. We have had first public consultation on the concept in November last year. We have signed up the memorandum of understanding for the Secretariat and Steering Group in the first quarter, with the agreement reached on the 6th of April, when we have launched the open call for members. Now we are drafting the work plan, which we want to submit for the members of the Alliance for consultation in the coming days, as I said, so that by the 12th of July, we will be able to sort of enact or endorse the work plan at the the first General Assembly that is planned on 12th July in Brussels. From that point, we will move to the sort of second phase of the alliance, of the phase of the preparatory phase for launch of the pipeline, and in this phase we'll work in the roundtables. So first we'll launch an open call for members of the roundtables. After the summer, we will have a selection process ongoing, so that these roundtables will be operational still before end of this year, and by the mid of next year, so the second General Assembly around also June, July next year, we will be able to sum up the work of the roundtables and launch the first call for proposals for the project to be included in the pipeline. So that's sort of the overall outline for the next next months and years. I would now want to have a couple of finishing words on how to actually apply to become the member of the Alliance. Well, the process is very simple, but not in the terms of commitment that it involves. First, you need to visit the website of the Alliance. On the website of the Alliance that you can find out on DigiMove pages, there is a link to the Alliance Declaration. The Alliance Declaration is your survey form that needs to be filled in. It includes the mind commitment. There is an Annex A with which would want to collect motivation of you to join the Alliance. There's also an Annex which describes the Alliance, how it works, what's their objectives, and what is the governance structure. This is to ensure that all the members are fully aware about how the Alliance would work. And the Annex C, which is the competitiveness guidelines. It's an important annex that was developed by the colleagues in DG to ensure that all the discussions that will happen in the work are happening with the respect of the rules on the antitrust and competition laws. After you submit the declaration, which also important to note that it requires the agreement at the high level of the management in the organizations, because it includes, as I said, a commitment to work towards the objectives of the Alliance. We will submit the confirmation letter if there is no missing elements in the declaration. You will be able to find the FAQ document on our pages as well, which will be able to answer your questions if you would have to this process, and as well to with regards to other elements of the Alliance. So far, we have more than 100 members already went through this process, including a number of key players in the airline, in the aviation. We have, for instance, Airbus and Boeing and Safran with regard to the technologies. We have Rolls-Royce for the engines. We have a number of big players in the fuels like Neste, Shell, BP. We have also majority of the fuel industry associations in the fuels area, and also the aviation part. We have a number of R&D and public bodies. What we, of course, what we have seen so far, that we need to reinforce the work with regard to the industry, financial institutions, and therefore we will have intensive dialogue with the AB, so that we ensure that also the investors part of the value chain will also be well represented in the Alliance. If in this group are any stakeholders that are closely linked with the financial institutions, I would appreciate if you pass on the message that we also need their part in the Alliance as well. So with that, I will finish my presentation and collect any questions if there are.
Thank you very much, Michal. Indeed, is quite comprehensive. I see the Alliance has a significant effort around the governance, and I am sure this is to ensure transparency, but also to ensure that you are, let's say, doing the right steps at the right time, and in a collaborative and in a coordinated manner with the stakeholders. I see there are quite a number of questions, a good number of questions. Maybe it's my turn to switch to Slido. So I can show Slido on my screen, and then we can go through the questions. Michal, if you need to refer to any slide to support your answer, you just take over the presentation, or let's say the sharing.
Yeah,
so
I do the stop sharing, right? Great.
So There has been, I think, some questions related to the scope, to the geographical scope, and both related to the type of organizations. So, for example, the first one, that's more admin on our side. Yes, the presentation will be shared in the website and will be distributed to all the participants today through email. But you can also find it in the website of the in the website of the project. Correct. So that's the first thing that we can clear. That's good question, easy. So how do non-EU interests join to the alliance, and also
Yes.
the roundtables?
Yes. So, right. There are two, as I said, the overall alliance membership is an open process. We are open to partners from our global trading partners. As you said, as you already saw, we have already a number of big foreign companies like Bain or big or our company, our Rolls-Royce. We so there's no limitation with regard to the geographic scope of the location of the headquarters of the companies or the capital being represented. Still, of course, in these turbulent times, we reserve the right to reject companies that are openly hostile to the interests of the EU or are represent the interest with regard to the countries that are, as I said, hostile to our interests. Here we will act on an ad hoc basis rather than providing explicit rules. I think that with regards to the what is happening in Ukraine and the importance of the fuels value chain, I think that this is quite understandable. Regarding the members in the roundtables, there will be a separate process, sort of internal process inside the alliance, as the roundtables will have to be operational, and they will also have to achieve a high degree of representativeness of different value chains, stage segments, and geographical location, and other concerns that are usually that are important with regards to the group that will draft documents that will be of our interest for relevance for development of the future steps in the alliance. So this process will have a more exclusive approach, meaning that we will have a proper call for members, and there will be a selection process that will be done by the Commission. The steering group will be involved in the stage that it will advise on particular or on the membership with regards to sort of desired composition, value chain elements that needs to be represented. But this step, as we learn from the work of the other alliances, it is best that the selection is actually done by the Commission, so that all the members of the alliance will be ensured that there is no other business steering or hijacking the process. Also, with regard to the creation of the pipeline of the projects, we might have geographic conditions that will be involved there. Here we also can look into the best practices from the other industry alliances. For instance, in the hydrogen alliances, we have seen that the good practice is to ensure that the projects that will be submitted to the pipeline have a clear link with the European value chain. So it might be as well, it could be that the projects may be located outside the EU, but it has to be demonstrated the link with the steps that are within the EU. How exactly this will be presented, it's again not yet we are not there yet at this stage. It will be, in fact, be discussed in the works of the roundtables. Great. So I think that I answered the first two questions.
Yes, I think that was correct. And I think it also makes sense as the funding mechanism will come through the European Union, and different investors, obviously, they will need to be aligned
Yes.
and to be within the boundaries of our regulations and our policies. But I think it's also quite interesting that it is not geographically constrained to the European Union territory. And indeed, this is where, for example, other companies like Rolls-Royce, Airbus that are, multinationals, obviously they see the real value of these alliances. I think related to that, there was a question I saw before, maybe before moving to the next one. It was related to an airline. It was, I cannot find it now, but it was something like, yeah, here I see it. So because I also realized that in the list of members, or the current members,
Yes.
couldn't see many or any airline. Is that, I understood also is part of the value chain, might be more, let's say, user and not seen so clearly as part of the value chain. I don't know how you rated that, and also if you are, let's say, have a special thought for the airlines.
So yes, I may show you the slide with, yes, I can show you one slide. We did on this slide shows the steps in the value chain that took part of the public consultation that we done in November. What we have seen already that there is a quite well-balanced interest from all steps in the value chain, and that's exactly where we want to have this as well replicated in the structure of the members of the alliance. We are interested in the members.
Yes, maybe the sharing failed because I did not remove mine. Now you can.
Okay.
Perfect. Now it's coming.
Yes. So, this, as I said, this slide shows the value chains that were took part in the consultation, the various companies, locations in the value chain that took part in the public consultation that we ran in November last year. It shows a good, decent, I would say, decent interest from all steps in the value chain, with sort of a degree of overrepresentations in the fuels industry, which might be quite understandable. But still, what we would want to achieve is a degree of presentation from all steps in the value chain, from the sourcing to the end users, even involving the end usage of the transport services. For instance, we have already discussed with the IKEA, which is a company that is interested in demonstrating its transition, also in their upstream value chains, and therefore they would be interested in sort of purchasing transport services that are clean and therefore consistent with their other green business strategy. So that also sort of extends backwards the airlines that are sort of in terms of the end users of the transport services one step above it. And we already have, I would say, a number of airlines being represented in the members. We have, for instance, the EasyJet. We have the Polish Airlines. We have I think there's some others. We have had discussions, for instance, with the DHL. They are still in the process of submitting the application. So indeed, that I just want to stress that we are very much interested in the airlines as well. They are an important element in the puzzle.
And then now I'm looking more detail to the list. I see also Iberia, so there are some airlines already. I understand it's also your open call to this sector or to this part of the value chain. to be represented, well represented in the alliance, to make their voice also heard, and obviously their specificities, right?
Yes.
Okay, so maybe Ralph or Rebecca, can you help me also with Slido so you can bring some questions that were not yet answered?
Yeah, Santi, I think you have covered many of them. Maybe there's one question, or I can just share with you that might deserve a bit of interpretation. Let me just read it as it is written here. It says different feedstock method and blending ratio contributes to varying decarbonization percentages. Any minimum mandate required?
Yes. So yes, actually, yes, this is a big element uh, uh, of subject of discussion that I probably should have mentioned as part of my slides, is the issue of the interlink of what the alliance would be doing in the context of the legislative proposals that are ongoing. So I showed the slide with the fuels in scope that are our interest, and that is essentially implying that there are two important things. Is, of course, we did a selection of the fuels in scope from the perspective of also what are the interest of the other industry alliances and other initiatives inside the Commission, so that there is no overlap and there is sort of clear division of responsibilities. But also it is important to say that we as an alliance will not interfere with the ongoing legislative processes that are taking place in the Council and Parliament regarding the fuels proposals, the Fuel EU Aviation and Fuel EU Maritime. It is to respect also the clear distinction that industrial alliances are not Commission expert groups, and therefore they are not intended to advise the Commission on the development of the policy and the legislative tools. All of those discussions will, of course, be happening separately but concurrently within the dedicated fora that are created for that exact purpose. It is also possible that the conclusions of the work of the Industrial Alliance will be carried on and will be presented to the Commission at those forums. So it is important that there will be interaction between what the Alliance is doing and what is being discussed in those dedicated fora for the policy making. But here again, it's important to note that the Industry Alliance as itself will not sort of debate on the conditions of the fuels that will be discussed and will be enacted in the context of the refuel aviation legislative tools. So in short, the eligibility criteria for what kind of fuels will be able to be used to achieve the objectives that the blending mandates that will be reinstated in the fuel aviation. No, sorry, I'm not to recap. The industrial alliances will essentially inherit the enabling conditions that are the eligibility conditions that are for the fuel technologies that are included in the legislative proposals, the final text that is agreed in the Commission, in the regulations. In other words, whatever is permitted to achieve the objectives, the blending mandate of those as these proposals will the final legal text will say, our alliance will be able to invest in these technologies. In that sense, there will be different degree of different greenhouse gas emission efficiencies of different technologies. But it would not this will not impact the eligibility of those fuels technologies inside the Industry Alliance.
Thanks, Michal. I think that was an important clarification to make a clear distinction between the regulatory process and the consultation with the different stakeholders, the industry and the different stakeholders within the regulatory process, which is separated from the alliance and the purpose of the alliance. Obviously, the information shall flow and the, let's say, the realization or the reflections from the alliance somehow needs to fit the regulatory process, but not to mix them let's say, inappropriately. So I think that's very clear. And also, I think is as part of the discussions at ICAO under the CAP, obviously the technical, let's say, details on eligibility, either under CORSIA or under the different schemes. Obviously, that is something subject to the technical analysis, and that is probably part of the, let's say, the discussion in other fora. Okay, I think we are reaching to the end of the, maybe giving a second for the last questions, if any, from the audience. In the meantime, let me recover the slides to go back to the, or to finish the webinar. Do you see any final question from the audience?
I think we covered the most relevant ones, Santi, and thanks, Michal, for your spontaneous and prompt answers.
Okay, so my computer today is not really helping. I have a processor issue that is running behind. So if you give me just a second, I will immediately come back to you.
If you want, Santi, I could also kick in with the announcement of the webinar that we're going to hold next week, what that is going to touch the aspect of the eco label the EASA and the European Union is developing, knowing that environmental friendliness and sustainability is a key sales argument also to the wider range of clients, and our colleague Gerne would give you an insight on the current status on the eco label.
Yeah, this will be quite promising. Obviously, it's not yet fully developed, and the workshop or the webinar will start playing with the concept and bringing the main ideas around the initiative. But if you go back, for example, to your shopping, when you go to the supermarket, now you start having some labels qualifying the, let's say, the bio or the bio nature of the product, and how much this bio nature is working or helping to make your decisions. And that's similar concept what the eco-labeling for aviation will mean. And obviously there is a whole initiative with the industry again participating that is developing the whole concept and the idea behind. So I think we are ready to close the webinar. I think these shots of information will be very interesting for starting getting, let's say, some discussions forward. Obviously, this is complementary to the initiatives that we have under the project, either technical or bilaterally with the different stakeholders. Ralph is showing the different other topics that we will address during these webinars. You see environmental reporting or issues related to the certification, as it will be the next one, the reflection of the airport as the hub for the scaling up of the SAF, and later on probably on the hydrogen, and the benefits of CORSIA beyond, benefit of SAF beyond CORSIA. And this is more thinking of corporations and the, let's say, the wider scope of the CO2 reduction that the SAF achieve. So all that to come. You will receive all this information through your email, but also if you check the website, you will see updated information on the different initiatives. So thanks, Michal, for your time. I think it was quite comprehensive information provided.
Thank you for the invitation. Bye-bye.
Hi, everybody. Have a good end of the day in Southeast Asia. So it should be the end of your working day. So looking forward to see you again next week.
Next week. Bye-bye.
Bye, Michal. Thanks for helping us again.